Want to go far in business and in life? You can't do it alone. The secret is expanding your network of personal relationships, building friendships, connecting on an intimate level, away from the office, over a coffee or cocktail. Welcome to All In with the real Nate Payo. The show that asks what happens when you go all in and leverage the power of your network of personal relationships.
From author Donnie Bovine comes the book, How to Be a Success Champion, available on Amazon. After years of living other people's dreams, author Donnie Bovine decided to jump out on his own and start a business, thinking it would be easy. Instead, he had a rude awakening and quickly understood that he had spent 20 years being an employee and had no idea how to be a business owner. His business was tanking, and he was on the brink of losing everything when he decided to fight for business freedom. In this must-read and life-changing book, author Donnie Bovine shares with readers his story intermingled with lessons learned from his mistakes and his failures. In How to Be a Success Champion, you will find advice the author received from mentors and how he went from zero to a six-figure business. The author walks you through the steps of how to get out of your own way, how to play the game of business and win, find your strengths, how to network effectively, how to build a personal brand, how to create champions for your business, how to get great at sales, how to take complete ownership of you and your business. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Bovine, available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback editions. Order your copy right now. It makes a great book for corporate events too. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Bovine, available on Amazon.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the All In podcast with Nate Payo. Of course, I am your host, Nate Payo. Today, I'm joined with Zef Neemuchwala, who has consulted on gamification for education technology in his previous job. He's also a former lecturer at the University of Leeds in the United Kingdom with several awards for teaching. He has a Master of Science in Design Technology and an MBA. He recently founded the Be a Maker Club, a children's maker space with the goal of helping children learn computer-aided design and manufacturing through 3D printing, laser engraving, and CNC carving. Welcome to the show, Zef. How are you doing?
Hey, thank you. I'm doing good today.
Yeah. So we were chit-chatting a little bit before we started recording about what Be a Maker Club is. I was very interested to learn that it's a place for kids to go and basically learn and get interested in making things and discovering creativity. So, can you walk us through a little bit about what Be a Maker Club is, and then maybe a little backstory of what inspired you to do it?
Yeah, sure. Well, Be a Maker Club, I founded it with the express goal of helping children make. We work with children to let them create three-dimensional objects. We have CNC carvers, mills, we have laser engravers, we have 3D printers, and we have soldering irons. And so we instruct kids on, how to use those. They have an idea that they can transform into a design and then into a physical object. So they go through the whole product design cycle, if you like. And some of this is really familiar to me because of my own personal background. But in 2017, I had sort of just finished doing consulting work with gamification, and I was thinking, well, what do I do next? I was looking around for I was thinking, well, maybe I should just start a product business, because that's what I like doing. I like creating stuff. And I came across a makerspace in Upland called U-Makers. And so I started going there, trying out different things, learning different devices. Both my kids, because I was the at-home parent, I'd go and pick them up and, drop them to school. And sometimes I'd go with them to the makerspace. And my daughter, who's about 7.5, 8 years old at that time, she started asking me, hey, Dad, can I do some of this? And I thought, yeah, I think it should be possible. So I asked Rob, who ran this space, and he said, no, well, I can't really let kids in here because a lot of the equipment in here is industrial, right? And so kids are liable to get hurt. And so that's really how this Be a Maker Club started, because actually when Rob said no, I kind of told my daughter, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Let's see if we can find something else for you. Like I kind of almost brushed her off a little bit, I guess. And then I tried looking around for like another makerspace where she could go and make things. And so we took her to like a STEM class. We took her to like a craft class. But after every class, she'd come back and she said, no, well, I can't do what you're doing. These guys are just teaching me other stuff. And really, that's how Be a Maker Club started. It's just down to her pesto power. And I think, like initially when I dismissed it, it's just like one of those things parents do to their kids. Just like, oh yeah, it's not there. Like, what am I going to do? Like, but as she kept saying, well, I want to try to make something that's in my design, and, she kept saying all those things that I was already thinking about myself. So it kind of became really hard to ignore what she was saying. And so then I started to kind of like, I ended up buying a laser engraver and a 3D printer for myself. And, I was working in my garage and I was teaching her. And then Rob, who had the adult maker space, I approached him and I said, can I use your space for a little bit just to see if other kids might be interested? And he was very generous. He actually shut down his maker space every Sunday afternoon so that I could run classes for kids. And that just took off, basically. And in fact, it got to a point where he said, look, Zef, I'm not going to shut down my makerspace because you're getting in too many kids. You need to make up your mind what you want to do about this. Do you, because I think you should like do this. You should start a business doing this. And so that's sort of when. So 2018, I actually got a space right across from him simply because I was thinking, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. But, since that's sort of, I would say, very shaky start where I got arm twisted into it by my 8-year-old, we've actually had quite a lot of success in terms of how we've grown. So till the start of 2020, we worked with almost 4,800 kids. And we've really innovated in sort of in-person making. And the formats have been backyard birthday parties. We've done it in, in parks, in classrooms. We worked with several large groups. This one 3D printing class we did like for the first time completely freaked us out too. It was 150 kids.
Holy moly.
Yeah, it was just two of us. And, it's like when you're in a startup situation, you kind of say yes to anything that's paid. Like, that's how you do it, right? But then you get there and you realize, what have I signed up to do? What did I agree to? And I think after the panic sort of, kicked our adrenaline and, it got that going. And we realized the kids were actually super psyched. And even the teachers are telling us, what are you guys doing? Like, I mean, why are the kids not making a racket here? Because, there were some of these moments basically that was, it was fantastic, like in terms of learning for us as well. Because, we were going in like, we know how to use this cool device, a 3D printer or a CNC, and we're just going to show you what to do. And almost like, kind of expecting the children to be like kids. But the more we shut up, basically, it felt that the better the kids got at it. And kids would come up and say like things that we would read in science journals. I mean, of course, not as articulated, but when we'd have Q&A, especially with 3D printing and stuff, you'd get like grade 1, grade 2 kids saying things like, all right, so if this thing can make anything, can it make itself? And then couldn't we make just a really small one that will make a slightly bigger one, and then a bigger one, and then a bigger one? And that's exactly the kind of stuff that NASA's working on, right? Because they want to build small 3D printers, send them up, and then build the tools themselves. And of course, what I'm trying to build the connection though is that conceptually, it was amazing how fast these kids got it, right? So anyway, it just snowballed. In 2019, we actually got a fellowship from the Travis Lab, and that was also really it was a great opportunity, because what it did, it gave us resources to assess the impact that we were making. And so, I think all of 2018 was just like a feel good. We were trying something new, and all these kids were excited, and we were excited, and everywhere we could go, we would go. But then when we started working with the Travis Lab and the Claremont McKenna staff, and looking really in depth at, hey, what is it that they like about us? Why is it that this is more sticky in some cases? It basically started to become a lot more clearer. And, so we changed our pedagogy. I mean, some of the key things that we found, which I didn't realize we were doing it, but, it became very apparent, was girls specifically were super attracted to making, because we didn't use jargon. We didn't talk about engineering. And as we started doing more research into it, I mean, we had help. Okay. So this is not me just doing the research, but people, are in the Claremont McKenna, we had a research intern last summer. And one of the things he found was that there's been trends going back 10, 12 years where girls, by the time they're 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, the minute they hear the word engineering, they say, well, that's not what we want to do. But then if you say things like, well, do you want to learn about climate change in order to help the environment? Or do you want to learn about forensics in order to solve murders, which is all science, all STEM, all engineering? They say yes. So it was like the language that we were using, how we approached it. That was like a big thing. And I think for me, that happened instinctively because, I was used to dealing with my daughter. But then the second thing also was that we learned to just shut up as an adult in the class, right? This one time I remember it was a 6-year-old. He came into a 3D printing class, first class, right? And so we started this new thing. I was like, so what do you guys want to make? Right? And he's like, can we make anything? I said, yeah, we can start working on any idea. And the 6-year-old said, well, I want to make a rocket ship, sit in it, and go to Mars, all in that 1 hour. Right? And so I think the previous version of me would have said, well, dude, that's not possible. Look at the size of the printer and stuff. But I kind of wisened up, and we'd learned to, like I said, keep quiet. And so I'd say, okay, yeah, so let's do it. And then, he would say, okay, so what do I do next? I said, well, you got to sit in it. So it's going to be such and such big. But long story short, what happened at the end of the hour, he built a small keychain, which was rocket shaped. Okay. And I asked him, are you happy with this? He says, yeah, fantastic. I said, what's your plan now? Because it's a 6-week class, right? He's got to come in once a week for 6 weeks. He said, well, every class I come in, I'm just going to grow this bigger till it becomes big enough for me to go. And so that has also become a big thing for us because it was his idea, right? He has ownership. So if he chooses not to actually make that big rocket and just makes the keychain, he's still happy with it. And that also turned out to be a really big deal for us because we were able to, all that chaos that I was talking about where we would just sometimes say yes to stuff. And that was the other thing we realized, that we were able to manage a lot of that chaos because, it's like it was the child's idea. So if they're being disruptive, it's kind of on them, and that ownership, as soon as we started to see that, it automatically addressed everything else. So it became like we started to have fun teaching. And in all these classes, in so many kids that we worked with, we've never had anybody get hurt. We've not had to have disciplinary issues. I mean, it's amazing, right? And that's been one of the big things that we realized is that our methodology has become effective because it's we're not leading the class. We're just there to turn the machines on and stuff, as the kids are running the class. And I must admit it's a little different feeling. And some of the people who work with me, like this one guy, Jadamis, he's a prototyper, immensely clever, very technical, right? And it's so funny because he has to explain to like 5-6-year-olds all these really technical terms, and he says it like he's talking to an adult. Mm-hmm. And these kids will look at him and say, "What is that?" And so he's forced to use language that they can understand. And so after like the first few times that happened, he came back to me and he said, "You know what? I think I understand this better now." And I thought that was hilarious because he was one of those people who we would all rely on for technical help. Mm-hmm. Like, he's like our technical whiz kid, right? And he would come out of a class saying, and I mean, I'm going to extend that further. We got this one contract. Again, this was last summer, where we were teaching a boot camp for green tech and eco tech entrepreneurs at Lacey, which is in downtown, in the Arts District, right? And when we got that contract, we went down, we started talking to these guys, and I was wondering, well, why do they want us to come and do this boot camp? And that was kind of my question, but I was sort of afraid asking it. Like, I was like, why do you want to hire us? You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like I wasn't quite sure I wanted to ask that question because they already decided they wanted us, right? Mm-hmm. But it kind of got to a point where I figured, okay, I feel safe enough to ask that question. And their reply was, well, basically because you guys can teach 5-year-olds. And so we were still, we still had the fellowship program with the Claremont McKenna College. And so the boot camp for adults and a summer camp at the Claremont colleges, both of us, we were running them kind of parallelly, okay? And so we had the Claremont McKenna intern who was doing sort of his feedback studies, right? So he went to both sessions, and then post-session, when we did our feedback. And the funny thing was, all the metrics of satisfaction, unhappiness with the classes, or what they felt they achieved, it was like if you'd taken out which class it was, you couldn't tell the difference between the adult class and the kids class. So I mean, these kind of things were like really, we never expected this to happen. Jadam has also got a really big kick out of it because he actually had to drop out of UCLA. And when he was teaching the boot camp, some of his former classmates who are now full-fledged engineers, have work experience, were in the class, and he was teaching the class. So he got a massive kick out of that.
Yeah. So I'm loving this idea behind it because, like, I remember as a kid, like you were kind of drawn to like computer classes and maybe like, I remember shop, like wood shop, stuff like that. And of course this was like junior high, so it's probably a bit older, but you would just get like really interested in things, but there was always like limitations of what you could do with woods and materials and stuff like that, just because of the technology and computers at the time. But, kids have this unlimited imagination, especially when they're, like you said, 5 to 8, and they're just like, whatever it is. And you go into them with this idea of like, hey, here's this 3D printing machine, which basically can do, essentially like, hey, if you can think it, it can do it, like it, you just got to figure out a way to break down the parts and pieces and assemble them. And so you take these kids and you say, hey, what do you want to do? And they say, well, I want to build, a rocket ship to take me to Mars. And you just say, okay, well, let's do it. There's no limitations. Let's think about how you would do it. And they're coming to their own terms, or thinking through the problems, or thinking like, you're kind of learning without telling them like, hey, they didn't put a person on the moon. That the first rocket they built, like they had to like build up and learn stuff about it. And I think these kids, like my son, he's 3. and we gave him a tablet like when he was 2, and like he couldn't really figure it out at first, and now he like zips along on this thing, finds all these games, does all these stuff. It's just amazing about like how quick he's like mastering it. And I was thinking the other day, like if somebody says, well, you know, you shouldn't give a kid these things so young, I'm like, well, that's what they're going to be doing in life when they get older. So why wouldn't you want them to master how a touchscreen tablet works at a young age? Why wouldn't you want somebody to master how you do 3D printing or how you do these maker spaces? Because these are the things that are going to get kids very interested in engineering. They're going to get very interested in curiosity. They're going to get very interested in solving problems, and they're creating skills at an early age that can't be taught, like these critical thinking, reasoning, evaluating things. So I think it's just this amazing way of doing it, and the way you're teaching it, maybe by, you know, luck that you just stumbled upon the best way to teach them. But, you know, I found like when I talk to my son like an adult, and I don't, you know, talk down to him like a child, like he grasps concepts and he repeats things back to me. You're like, you're 3 years old. How do you know that works that way? It's the craziest stuff. So I think this is like super, super cool how you've done it. So I want to ask you a question that I always ask my guests, which is, what is your thoughts and feelings around the word luck? Do you believe luck has played a part in your life?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, you kind of mentioned earlier that you stumbled upon this by luck, and I think the answer is yes. Okay, I always hesitate. I think partly because I've done an MBA to say I believe in luck, but you know, I think it's like a manifestation of your experiences, right? Like I don't think I would have achieved some level of success in this pedagogical model that we have so far if I wasn't a parent, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, obviously being a parent, that has its own set of how I arrived at that life stage type of thing, right? So that's why I say, yes, it is definitely luck, because, you know, it's this one point in time that you don't know that you're going to be making that decision. And like for me, certainly, I was actually not going to do this business at all, right? Mm-hmm. And right now, I can't even imagine like not doing this business. Because, you know, we've seen kids, like we've seen their faces. I mean, you know, and you know, so many parents will tell my kids, hey, you guys are so lucky that you have this makerspace. And I was thinking, and I keep thinking, no, I'm really lucky because I did this. Because in my head, I'm still thinking like that kid. Because, you know, I wish I had this makerspace when I was a kid. So I guess, yes. So, I mean, the different parts of the luck thing, I guess, you know, luck in terms of that I managed to start it, but also really lucky that I managed to make a go of it. And I just love it. I mean, I think even in this video call, you can kind of see there's a 3D printer in the back. Because I kind of knew I wasn't going to work today. So this is the smallest one. I put it in the car and I wanted to try something out. And I'm pretty much like, I mean, you know, I'm kind of living the dream in my head. I think I make something every day. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, that is the luckiest thing for me. I can't believe that. Like, I mean, you know, and making is just like you have this complete freedom of expression. Right? I think it's the ultimate manifestation of that, right? And for me, I have that. I can make anything I want. Like, and I have the tools to make anything I want. I mean, how cool is that? Right?
That's really cool. You might be, you know, viewed upon as one of the luckiest people when you can do what you love and find passion on. So I'm curious, what does be a maker space or be a maker club have for the future? What's your like 5-year vision of where you're going to take this?
Well, I mean, I would say we definitely want to grow, right? And I think with these current COVID measures that were in place, so we had to end our in-person classes, we have to transform, and now we're looking at doing only 3D printing online, and we're still keeping the same maker principles. So I see this as a really like as an opportunity that 2 months ago what I was thinking about my growth and 5-year plan. Now I think it can grow much, much bigger because, one of the things about 3D printing, for example, is that when you're doing an in-person class with kids, we can't print big objects, okay? Because it takes a long time to print. Kids don't have patience. So we print smaller objects. And then, they go home, design, and then we print them offsite. Now we can do almost anything they want. So, those kind of freedoms we've now been given. And so really in the next 5 years, I think we want to be the go-to online portal for kids who want to make. And, all they need is a computer. You don't need to buy a 3D printer anymore. We print for you. You have the whole experience. If you are thinking of buying a 3D printer, you can learn with us, test it all out, then figure out which 3D printer to buy. That's a really common situation for a lot of parents once they realize, oh yes, I want my kids to learn 3D printing. So I think our market has suddenly grown exponentially. The total addressable market in startup speak that we're considering looking at has dramatically changed for us. It's become much, much bigger. We were debating different business models before this because we're trying to grow our in-person makerspace model. But, for an online delivery, we have the right balance now. Compared to 5 years ago, internet speeds are much higher now. 3D printers have become much, much cheaper. In fact, one of the things that we've learned from our research was that a lot of the devices that we were using to teach, they were built with a technical legacy of manufacturing devices. That means that they're really meant for people who do understand the technology. And kids don't care if your 3D printer costs $50,000 or $50, right? They want to chase their idea, right? And so sometimes the device is actually the roadblock. And so we actually have come up with our own design of a 3D printer specifically meant for children. And we're in line to get a grant from the National Science Foundation. Some of the timelines, again, on that have gotten changed because of these COVID, the pandemic situation. Our original plan was to actually release a test version by the end of this year. But I think that's now going to be pushed to most likely March next year. And so that's, again, part of our plan. So what we want to ultimately do is be able to deliver a remote makerspace platform. So that means you buy in to the education, the materials, the device, and the technical expertise. It's all kind of rolled into one. This is not the best analogy, but like kind of like Peloton. You buy the device and you buy the training, but for making.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of it because one, as a parent, you don't have to go invest a bunch of money in a 3D printer that your kids may or may not like. One. Two, you're providing a service because if I bought a 3D printer, I don't know what I'm doing on it. And if I don't know what I'm doing on, how am I going to show my kids a good way of doing it and be able to keep up with their level of interest? So that's great. And then the thing about the online version of it, one, kids can spend countless hours, not just the limited time that they're in for the in-person sessions, designing what they want to come up with, but there's also an interaction with the other kids doing stuff, sharing ideas. And I think they're more adaptive than we are on getting on a call and conversing with people. We kind of grew up probably in an era where it was more in-person collaboration, but I think kids growing up are used to online collaboration. There's kids, millennial kids or Gen Zs, whatever they say, that have really good friends that they just made on Xbox that they've never met in real life. And when I grew up, that would have been unheard of to have a friend you didn't even beat them in real life. They're just an online friend. You're like, that's crazy. But kids are going to be able to do this, and just being able to get on there and go, hey, I'm coming up with creative ideas, and get on and collaborate with another kid and go, hey, I did this. Well, did you think about doing this? They're going to come up with some amazing stuff. And by the time they're 18 years old, they're going to be inventing the craziest stuff out there. I think there's going to be a radical explosion from starting kids at an early age, getting them exposed to it. And before like I connected with you, I didn't have any idea this really existed. It didn't really cross my mind. And I'm just thinking like this feels like such a no-brainer of like what are activities you can get your kids involved in that's fun, it's challenging, it's is learning something, it's safe for the most part, and then you go and hey, I'm just going to print it. This could really easily scale where you could be in the middle of the United States in some small podunk town that's not going to have access to a 3D printer, do all this stuff online and find a place locally that you could go pick up your prints and do something with. And, it's an amazing idea. And I'm super, super interested in it.
That's great to hear. Yeah.
So that leads me to my last question. I like to ask my guests is, what do you think that the words all in on an idea or an outcome mean? What does that mean to you?
I think it's all about belief. All in means, for me, those words represent belief and commitment, right? I think, with my own story with Beer Maker Club, I kind of mentioned the hesitation I had in starting it. And, after, now that I've run it for a couple of years, I reflect back on it, but I think, well, one of the reasons I was probably hesitating on it, it's not because when my daughter brought it up, I thought it was a bad idea. It was because I knew that in order to do it the way I really wanted to do it, I'd have to go all in, right? And that kind of scared me because I was like, I'm getting, it's a great idea. It's come from my 8-year-old. And I know it's a good idea, but should I go all in on this? That's what actually scared me. And that's probably why I think that's kind of I know it's a sort of almost like a negative situation I'm describing to you, but that's what it is. And now that I'm doing it, I mean, it's all, it's not work for me, right? It's not work for me. And if you talk to people, you talk to the parents sometimes, especially the ones who come for some of my classes, sometimes the parents will say, can I participate? And this is the other part of it. Like I say, no, you guys are jaded. I don't want to talk to adults. So, I mean, it's kind of like literally like I get to talk to people who have the best ideas, right? Yeah. And so for me, that's what for me, that's why I feel like I'm all in now. I mean, this is it. Like I can't think of anything else, right? It's like my brain, my wife will watch this. Sometimes I'll get up in the middle of the night because it's like I can't turn it off. Mm-hmm. I can't turn it off. And it'll be something stupid sometimes. I feel like I have to see through the end. It's an idea in my brain. And so I think at that level, I definitely relate to kids. And I think that's the other thing about this, the pure enthusiasm that you see in a child's face when they're doing something. It's because they're all in, like they're so engrossed, right? Mm-hmm. All their faculties, all their resources is going towards that one thing that they're doing, and they're loving it. And I think in today's day and age, there's so few things that we can do that way,
Yeah, I can sense your passion big time in this, and I'm just in love with this idea right now, and just can see the potential of like how much kids could do, and like, hey, you got to get this in front of more people. Like it's almost like, hey, you were called to do it, and you had to be opportunistic to see like, hey, there's a need for something. It's not out there in the way I envision it. So I guess responsible to create this and bring it to the masses. So I know we're running a little bit out of time here, so I want to make sure you have a chance to talk about where people can find you, and who it is you're looking to reach and connect to.
Sure. People can find us online at our website, Be a Maker Club. That's BEAMAKER Club.com. That same handle, Be a Maker Club, is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. We're actually building a new pitch deck because we pivoted, and towards the end of this summer, we're actually going to start pitching again. We have a couple of advisors who we've been talking with, to try and redevelop this new business model that we have. And I think they're quite excited about this new pivot, simply because it's, like I explained earlier, it's increased our TAM.
Mm-hmm.
So we're basically going to go get that funding, and the NSF money is going to come in too. So I'm looking forward to the next couple of years. It's going to be super exciting. We have a whole bunch of really bright interns coming in this year from a bunch of Ivy League colleges, again, because of the current situation. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really looking forward to kind of working with them, building up this new business plan, this new pitch deck, and starting to pitch. I think we should be able to close just literally, a couple of months into the summer.
Awesome. Fantastic. I wish you the best of luck. So all those links will be up on the show notes. I encourage you to reach out, connect with Zef, see what he's going. If you're in the Upland, California area, drop in, and when the COVID orders are over, drop in, say hello, but definitely follow and show it, get your kids interested in what creating does.
Get them making.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time here.
Hey, thank you, Nate. It was a pleasure being on your show.
Appreciate it.
Bye now.
Make sure to visit our website, therealnatepeo.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, so you'll never miss an episode of All In. While you're at it, if you found value, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if simply tell 2 friends about the show. Looking to connect? You can find Nate Peo on LinkedIn or Instagram.